This show is brought to you by my friends at Alliance and Trust. Do you know where your money is invested? Chances are that your hard-earned dollars are being used to fund the woke mob. In these crazy times, investment managers are using your money to support their woke ESG agenda. Many of you are already boycotting and closing up your wallets to stores that blatantly display evil, but do you know what your IRA, 401k, and other investments are supporting? Alliance and Trust can show you exactly where your money is going and help you make the necessary changes to align your investments with your values. Go to friendofbryce.com to talk to an Alliance member today and get a free values alignment report to make that change today. I'm a proud client of Alliance and Trust, and this is a paid advertisement. Welcome to the Bryce Eddy Show. So today, I've got some of my favorite people here. So this couple that I'm going to talk to, they are genuine superstars. I mean, they've got it going on. They are on Fox and Friends in the morning. I think on the weekends, they'll correct me on all that. I don't watch much TV, but I got to sit next to this couple at a live action trip to Washington, D.C., and we just had great conversation around the table. And then all of a sudden, they were the keynote speakers, and I had no idea. So I am excited to talk to them now on my show. I've been on their show, and they're just wonderful folks. I mean, I think, well, all right, I'm gonna stop singing their praises, and we're just gonna roll with this. But Sean and Rachel Duffy, how are you?
Good. It's so great to be here. That dinner was so fun, and we just happened to sit next to you. And Sean and I are constantly talking about, the zombie apocalypse, and you were like the guru. Like every question we had about the zombie apocalypse and how to prepare for it, you had the answer. We were just like immediately looked at each other and said, "We got to get this guy on our podcast." And you were really kind, and you did it.
You start off with like, okay, I know we're crazy, but these are the things we're thinking about. And you're like, no, you're not crazy.
No, he's crazier.
I'm like,
that's right. Well, I haven't built a Mark Zuckerberg level bunker yet, but all of the elites and all these billionaires, all of a sudden at the same time, are building bunkers. So that tells you something.
What do they know, right?
Well, they're in charge of our destruction, I think. So, if they're going to be pulling the trigger on some of this stuff and have been. But yeah, if they're building bunkers, maybe we should think about how to be self-reliant, which, and I'm not the expert. I just talk to the experts and have experts as friends and have learned a lot. And to bring you guys up to speed, we have sold our home and we are now on our way here in a couple of weeks to Idaho, and we'll be building a place there. So if it gets bad where you guys are at, we're building a pretty spectacular place and we have extra rooms.
We know where we're going.
Well, I'll say there was a storm, not a crazy storm, but it was this week, and and we have a generator, and everything just went haywire here in New Jersey. So I'm telling you, the blue states are not ready for whatever happens. So we're going to take you up on that offer.
Yeah, what's interesting, and I don't think people understand how quickly things can disintegrate. And look, God willing, I think it's great to have very deep community and be self-reliant and be able to take care of yourself if something does go wild or go wrong. But we shouldn't live in fear of that, but we need to be prepared. And the blue cities, the people who live in cities, will be amazed at how quickly they fall apart in any kind of real disaster. Civilization kind of holds on by a little bit of a thread.
We've talked a lot about kind of what do we do, because I think most American men and women don't know how to do anything, right? You can't take care of yourself. If you can't get it at the grocery store, you can't get it. And so I've committed to, and I started before the first of the year, but this is the year I'm going to learn how to do stuff. I use a different word, but I'm going to learn how to do stuff this year. And again, like even simple stuff, I can make butter. I can make ice cream. I can use flint and steel. I'm trying to figure out how do you.
He's making candles. He's made candles.
Oh, I made candles.
Well, I
That's
read
right.
in his bio. I read in his bio that he's a lumberjack. So,
He can chop wood. That he can do.
I can chop and saw a tree, but you get outside of that, I can't work with that tree. I can't do anything with that tree but burn it. But you know what's interesting is so many people are there's this almost this unconsciousness where people are thinking something isn't right. Things are amiss, and whether it's with the food supply, I look at the finances. I was on the Financial Services Committee in Congress. I was there for 9 years, and when you have $33 trillion in debt, and we're still going to have a deficit, we're going to borrow another $2 trillion this year. There is no end in sight. We are not going to stop spending. It's only going to get worse. There will be a point that people say, hey, America's not a good place to invest. It's not a safe place for my dollar. And we're also seeing the BRICS. These are other countries that are trying to pool their currencies, starting with China, Brazil, Russia, pool the resources to have an offset to the U.S. dollar. We're the reserve currency. All transactions are done in U.S. dollars, or most transactions, 70% of transactions are done in U.S. dollars. They want to have a competitor to the dollar. Well, if we're not the reserve currency, people trade in their dollars, that also is going to have a massive impact, I think, on our economy and the value of our dollar. We're going to see even more inflation. And so to think about that and prepare for it, I think makes a lot of sense as families.
And last summer you started, I mean, listen, we have a property. It's not great for like farming, but we put in some really large planters. Our first crop was quite a disappointment, but we learned along the way. And so hopefully this summer it'll get better. And it's just little steps at a time. I'm sure that the Eddy family is a lot more prepared than we are, but I think everybody, as Sean said, we've been surprised at, we happen to sit next to you, but we have these conversations with a lot of people. And as Sean says, we're always saying, I know we sound crazy, and everybody's like, oh no, I just bought a property in Tennessee, or I just, did this. And so there's something in the atmosphere.
Yeah, there is. I mean, we also have, aliens walking our cities too. So, I mean, maybe. But, there's plenty of things there's plenty of things for us to be concerned about. And you're right. We are cruising to, financial implosion, just about as fast as we can. I believe that and this is one of my greatest concerns, is I believe they're going to, trade our worthless dollars for government tokens in the form of CBDC, the central bank digital currency, which, once they do that, that's China-level control over how we spend our money. Yes. And so with the flip of a switch, they can say, all right, you've done too much of that. You've eaten too much meat. Your coin is only going to buy crickets now. There's so many reasons for us to be prepared and to at least, get some offset to the way we're living.
And for me, I'm a big crypto guy. Also, not keeping it at home, but have a place to store it. But gold and silver, actual gold and silver, that's ours. But when you think, you make a good point about the central bank digital currency. If you think about a $20 bill, a $100 bill, the freedom that comes with that $100 bill, you can spend it on groceries. You can, buy services from someone that comes to your house to fix, your washer or your dryer. You can buy drugs with it. You can buy a lady of the night with that $20 bill. Now, there's illegal things that you can do, but the freedom that comes with a $100 bill is remarkable. It can be used for anything. If we move to a central bank digital currency, the government's going to control how, when, where you can spend that money. The relationship with the currency completely flips on its head, where I'm in control of how I spend my money, and now the government will be in control of our money and their ability. I think there's a threefold attempt. I think they want to control energy, food, and currency. And once they control those three things, they control us. And it might beg the question, are people stupid in Washington? How can you keep borrowing and spending the way you are? And I'll tell you, they're not stupid. They're really actually very smart. I think they're trying to collapse the system. We won't go to a central bank digital currency or be open to it until the fear is so great when our dollar collapses that they're going to then usher in oh, we have a great idea. Let's do a central bank digital currency. So they're trying to collapse our current system to usher in this new currency of control.
Yeah, you're not wrong, because that's how they get us to do all kinds of things. Once
Yes.
once we get afraid, they give us they exchange our freedom for a little bit of perceived security, and so that's the whole way I think that they're going to have to do it if they're going to implement that. Remember, they started to get us used to the idea of not using cash during COVID. Remember, there was a lot of places that went cashless overnight. There's a lot of places that we don't accept bills because they told us that that's how we could spread the illness. And I believe that was part of that whole psyop is, let's and all of a sudden a coin shortage. How did we get a coin shortage in the middle of the pandemic as well?
And you're actually one quick. You're seeing the cash machines at banks and the grocery store. They're starting to take those out. So they're trying to move you away from using cash. And again, if I use cash, you can't track me, right?
That's right.
If I use a credit card or a check, obviously you can. And they assume that we're criminals as opposed to just good citizens who don't want the government in our business. There's an assumption of criminality if you don't want the government to track and know everything that you buy and how you use your dollars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they've also gotten us with convenience. So many of us, Sean and I, we're constantly talking about, the dangers of, the government and like, we both have clear to get to the airport because we just want to get through and they've got, and so, if they're able to convince Sean and Rachel, entice us with getting through the airport quicker, which we love, convenience has been the way to collect data, collect your fingerprints, collect your eyes, the data from your eyes and face recognition.
Well, Clear's moving from eyes and fingers. They now want to do a digital scan of your face. They asked me that the last time I went through it. I'm like, no, I'm good. I'll keep my face off.
But soon they're going to say you can't use Clear unless we get your face. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, good news for you though, Sean. They already have our faces, and the facial recognition that's being used right now is pretty prominent, and people don't realize they're testing it in places in public spaces that a lot of folks aren't even aware about, and they've been collecting that data for a long time. That's been something that we've talked about in the security world quite a bit. And again, China's been doing it forever, and China tracks all of their dissidents wherever they're going continuously, and we are a step behind that.
Well, we're tracking dissidents right now as well. They're called January 6th. Anyone who went to that riot or that rally. And by the way, we have political prisoners. I can still remember, I used to give speeches all the time on socialism and the dangers of socialism and what's happening in Cuba. And I remember just talking about political prisoners. It was such a foreign concept for us. But I would say, just 90 miles away, they had political prisoners, and guess what? We have them too, and they've lost all their constitutional rights. They're sitting in solitary confinement. They're totally forgotten by their own political party that they belong to, and in fact, the members of that political party, the Republican Party, are afraid to defend them. They've fallen for the whole you're an insurrectionist if you defend the rights of people who wanted to peacefully protest what we all know was a shady election. So we've already crossed the Rubicon. It's just a matter of time, and there's so few of us that seem to be aware of what's happening that I just feel like we have such a responsibility.
We do, and Siaka Massaquoi, who's on this show every other week with me in studio here, at least until I move, and then he'll be remote for a while. But he was picked up by the FBI at the airport coming back from celebrating the opening of the Daily Wire movie. And you guys should have him on your show at some point. But he's spent for the last couple of years, every time he goes to the airport, it takes him an hour extra to get through because they're tracking, all of those movements, and he's got a special thing on his ticket, and and he is only being charged with misdemeanors. But yet they send the FBI to go and nab him, and they have our air marshals tracking all of these folks now. Instead of being on the planes for safety reasons, they're following around, J6ers, and it's a dangerous time. There's an in crowd and the out crowd.
Instead of following actual terrorist threats on airplanes, they're following around J6ers. Many of them men and women who served in the military, honorably served this country, and had an honest belief that things weren't fair. But the impact of that has been remarkable. And Rachel and I have talked about this a lot. I think after January 6th, most Republicans have said, listen, I don't want to protest. I don't want to use my First Amendment rights because I know that if I do, I know I'm going to be put on a list. Someone's going to come after me. I think that someone maybe from the Fed might try to gin something up at this protest, and therefore I'm going to stay home. I think if January 6th and the targeting of those who went to that rally hadn't happened, you would have seen large protests outside of courtrooms where Donald Trump was being indicted, or the trial that's going on right now in New York City, this fake trial to say Donald Trump, lied on his bank forms when he got loans. People would come out on those. But you don't see anyone show up. No one goes because they're afraid that their own government is going to come after them. Again, it shows how far we've fallen, that people don't feel free to exercise their First Amendment rights.
But it's worked. We're all worried about what's going to happen in a year from now, or less than a year from now, in the next election. I mean, we say it's going to be bad if Donald Trump wins. It's going to be bad if he doesn't win. We can't predict what's going to happen. I'll tell you one thing that really makes me mad. Sean and I both know of Purple Heart veterans who were at January 6th, who are on the same no-fly, they have to get through, 5 hours of extra security to get through the airport. One of them, has a child, who he has to, he's divorced, so he can't really fly with these little kids because you can't fly with the toddler in 4 hours of extra security. It's humiliating on top of it. And then I just read about another guy who he is engaged, but he has a child, a baby, an infant, a little baby. And that baby.
So what they did is he said, listen, I'll buy my ticket by myself, and the baby and my fiance will buy tickets separately. So they're not put under my umbrella where we all have to get the security.
Exactly.
Well, what the feds did is they made his child, the infant, they gave him the special marking as well to get special scrutiny and security when he goes.
So his baby is
the
baby's on the list.
The baby's on the list now.
The baby's on the list, and what really steams me about all of it, mostly that they're veterans, but just think about that. These are Purple Heart veterans. I traveled through San Antonio, covering the border for Fox News. And when I was leaving San Antonio, there was a line of illegal immigrants all carrying the same, manila folder. It was obvious who they were. I started talking to them because I speak Spanish, mostly from Dominican Republic. As I started talking to them, getting more information, they told me they had been in the country for less than 30 hours and they were already on a flight. So, we're talking about these air marshals and our security. And we're hounding down American veterans, Purple Hearts, and their infants. And then these people have been in the country for less than 30 hours. I also spoke to someone from.
We know nothing.
We know nothing about them.
The kind of vetting you have 18, 19-year-old
kids. Exactly.
Kids
I was just going to say that high school
trained to do the vetting of millions of people that are coming into the country. There's no vetting that's happening.
Yeah.
We don't know who's coming in. We don't know what purposes they have. And it's scary. I think we have. I think there is the potential for an attack on the horizon, which is frightening.
Houthis have just said, we just had this attack with the Houthis. They've had massive protests, and during the protests, whoever the leader is that was addressing the crowd said, "We're going to have revenge on America," And where do you think it's going to happen? It's going to happen through our southern border.
Yeah, well, let me throw something else at you that you guys can hold on to. So you just mentioned that we're going to have violence or problems either way. I think it'll be violence either way. Whether Donald Trump wins, whether he loses, we're going to have we're not going to suddenly come together. Okay, and they are importing into the United States a military fighting force that will resist deportations and be essentially an insurgency. All they have to do is call them up. That's why what you're seeing is not a bunch of asylum seekers, which is what they're, the left likes to use these euphemisms. But you're not seeing people as qualified asylum seekers. These aren't people, running. I mean, there are plenty of them that would like to live here, and there are some women and children. But in what I experienced being down on the border, it is a ton of military-aged males. And that is going to present a massive problem when Donald Trump has already announced that he's going to have the biggest deportation process you've ever seen. That Senator, is the makings.
Senator, which is the Senator Durbin, has said that he wants to offer entrance into the military for the illegal immigrants that are coming across the border. Another very troubling thing to add to what you're suggesting.
Well, if a general gives an order to a fellow American to take action against an American, there may be some pause. There may be some reflection about these are my countrymen. However, if you have an illegal who's trying to earn citizenship and gets a command from a general, their response will be far different. I find this wildly scary that Dick Durbin from Illinois, a Democrat, wants to put these illegal migrants into our military again, who haven't been assimilated, that don't have a love for country, don't have a love for her people, and
don't have an allegiance. I mean, it's like
give them incredible power but again, all these bad ideas, and this is what it's really hard to unpack. A lot of really bad ideas, and so much of it is happening at the same time. To unpack it, to go, what is the real purpose here? What are they attempting to do? And Rachel talks about, and I agree with her. Whether it's the World Economic Forum, it's Bill Gates, John Kerry. These are weirdos. These are weird dudes. And we've got since the American experiment, we've brought more freedom to people, and we've spread that freedom around the world. And we're in this unique phase now in global history where they're like, listen, we don't want you to have more freedom. We want to take that freedom from you, and we want to deposit it with ourselves. We can manage your life, your economy, what you eat, how far you drive. You can live in a 15-minute city. And they want to put us in cages or digital cages, which is really weird that in this day and age, we see the beauty of freedom, that these nut jobs want to take it away from us.
Yeah, these oligarchs, these really soulless.
Klaus Schwabs.
Yeah, Klaus Schwab, George Soros, all of these guys, they are oligarchs. They have God complexes. Half of them are on the Epstein list. They're weirdos, and that we've allowed people that are so bizarre and so not normal to have this kind of just outsized influence over our country and our policies, and that we continue to right away, the sovereignty of this country. There's another thing coming up in June. More they want to give the rights in the case of a pandemic over to our rights as a nation. Even after the debacle that just happened, they're ready in June to sign over more rights to the WHO to take command and control over this country and over our policies when another pandemic hits, which they're just looking for another excuse. It'll be a climate thing. It'll be another, I guess they're also preparing for another X virus. They won't say what it is. That could be worse than COVID. I mean, they're plotting all kinds of stuff.
So Bryce,
right in front of us.
Would you answer a question for us? Because we've kind of had this ongoing debate and conversation about how does America respond? Right? When this happens and you start to realize I'm losing my freedom, do Americans actually protest? Do they stand up and push back and fight back? or do they just like sheep take it? And if I look at COVID, I would say it appears, I never thought Americans were sheep, but Americans are humans. And as humans, it's interesting, when they were afraid, they behaved like sheep, and very few of them pushed back and rebelled against the tyranny of COVID, which for me says, when this comes, I don't know that we have a group of people that stand up and say, no, we're not going to take that. We actually believe in what our founders gave us, which is this freedom and a government that is responsive to us, that serves us, not us that serves our government. How do you think Americans handle this?
Election season is upon us, but we vote every day with our dollars. Look, we can no longer put the blame on ignorance. I'm telling you, we need to make a stand now. Don't let your money be spent on evil by promoting the woke mob and their ESG agenda. Yes, I'm talking about your investments. Instead, find out where your money is invested and get a free values alignment report with my friends at Alliance and Trust today. Go to friendofbryce.com to talk to an Alliance member to make a change today. I'm a proud client of Alliance and Trust, and of course, this is a paid advertisement. Yeah, so that's a great question, and because we have a huge problem, and that huge problem is we've had a generational slide, right? You know, this is a generational problem that requires a generational solution, okay? So people like you guys with 9 kids, you know, we need to get busy and we need to be raising a really awesome next generation because we got soft over time. We lost the spirit that brought our founders here. Right? The settlers of America, the pilgrims, the folks, they were built of stern stuff. They had this vision of liberty being God-given, and, you know, that's what we're going to fight for. And we've thrown it all away. It's like multi-generational wealth. At some point, you know, they squander it, and we've squandered it. So we're in a mode, America is collapsing. Kurt Schlichter, who I admire a lot, town hall editor, written a bunch of books. He wrote a book called We'll Be Back, and he posits in that book that Rome had its rises and its falls, and each time it came back a little different, and we can decide how this comes back. The battle that we are in is a battle against a vision of global feudalism. It's not communism. It's not socialism. It's a global feudalism where they want us all to be slaves. It's everything that you described, Sean, with the 15-minute cities, the eating of crickets, all that sort of stuff while they fly around on their jets as masters of the universe. So what we need to do, because right now, if we take up arms, okay, because people ask me that all the time, when is it enough? When are we gonna fight back, kind of stuff. And if you even joke about something like that, or you even suggest something, the FBI is going to be knocking on your door again, because this attack, it's gone to our bones. We have cancer right now. So the solution from when we sat at that table that I said it still has not changed. We have to go into concentrated communities where we can stand up against this stuff. My thing is get out of the blue cities, get to places where people share our values, do business with people who share our values, support people who share our values, because what you're looking at is an attack on every bright spot of freedom in the U.S. You're looking at what they're doing to Rumble right now. They're trying to collapse that company because it's a free speech platform. We're on Rumble. There's all kinds of people who are on Rumble who are speaking truth. They don't want that to happen. They're attacking Elon Musk because he's speaking truth via X and allowing that platform for people. So we have to concentrate in those areas and make it hard and become hard to kill. And then we got to get busy having kids and raising them right.
Yeah, I mean, I love the last part that you talked about, because we talked about our New Year's resolution, and we had a lot of fitness ones in there, but probably with the most important one we had was what we say is we're fortifying our family. So we don't know what the next year, the next year and a half will bring us. We all agree here that whatever it is, it's going to be something we've probably never experienced before. It's probably going to be volatile, and maybe even violent. We hope not. But there could be scarcity. I mean, there's the economic stuff that we don't know that's going to happen. It could happen at any moment with $34 trillion of debt and lots of enemies looking to, take us off of our perch as the primary currency. So a lot of variables. And so I think all you could do, because you can't control George Soros and you can't control, Mitch McConnell and John Kerry and Klaus Schwab and all these evil villains. All you can do is control your own family. And so we say,
That's right.
fortify our family, build those bonds, because at some point, the community is great, but the first thing is, how is our family going to work together as a tribe, as a team? Are we all strong, bonded together, trusting each other, loving each other, and ready for whatever will come our way? And I think that's where we're at.
So if I could add to that, I served in Congress for 9 years. So it's a pretty powerful position. I'm one of 435 members in the House. There's only 100 senators. There's 535 of us in the country. And I've come to the conclusion that I can do more to save America by being a good dad, a good husband, raising good kids. I can do way more to save this country by saving my family than I can in Congress. And again, if I do think there's opportunity, if people recognize what's happening and they said, you know what, I'm going to do what I can to get my kids out of this woke school and try to find a place where I can get them a great education, whether I'm homeschooling or there's a pod structure with like-minded parents, or there's a good classical school in my community. I'm going to do everything I can. And if I have to ask my parents, their grandparents, to help us out, or if I have to ask brothers and sisters, siblings, to buy into the idea that we're going to raise good kids, if everyone starts doing that, we take away the greatest tool they have, which is their takeover of the schools and warping the minds of our kids.
That's right.
We live in New Jersey, and we found one of the greatest schools here. We can't believe how lucky we are for the wonderful classical school that our kids now go to. But it's a sacrifice, no doubt. It's a financial sacrifice. It's a time sacrifice to make that work, but we do it, and we hope others are. And you see the enrollment of these classical schools. More parents are getting it and saying, I want my child to actually have an education. I want them to be informed. I want them to be enlightened. I don't want them to be just indoctrinated. And if I can make a quick note to my FBI tracker, when I was saying to fight back and push back, I'm talking about electorally, I'm saying verbally, I'm saying on social media. I was not talking about taking up arms against anybody. I'm just talking about how you do this in a peaceful political realm.
Yeah,
I was making sure that my phone heard that.
Yeah,
that's what I'm talking about.
I just want you to know I am on every FBI list. I'm Catholic, I'm conservative, I'm on every list. And I think the message too is to grandparents. I know a lot of grandparents, including my own parents, who are just beside themselves. My mom is an immigrant to this country. Back when Obama was elected, my mom was seeing all the signs way before a lot of people. She saw bad things coming. Of course, her family had dealt with communism. And so she could see exactly where this was headed. And it's happening a lot faster than she even thought. And her and my dad are very distraught about it. And I think a lot of grandparents feel like, wow, I never thought I was going to leave this off to my kids and my grandkids. And my message to them is, because a lot of them feel like, okay, well, we worked so hard, we're going to leave an inheritance for our kids. It's like, you know what, if you have kids, I mean, Sean and I are fortunate that we can afford to pay for our kids to go to that classical school. But if you're a grandparent and your kids are sending your grandkids to a public school because they can't afford to send them to a better school that shares their values, invest now in your family. Invest right now in America, because I truly believe that the first thing they did, and my colleague Pete Hegseth wrote a great book about it. I mean, I thought it all started in the '60s until I read Pete Hegseth's book, and I'm trying to remember what the name is of his book is. Um,
But it started way before.
yeah, it started over 100 years ago. The progressives were doing
Yep.
this. We're just seeing the fruits of it now.
They had a plan.
Yeah, they sure
One
did.
of the point of this too. So, where you send your kids to college matters. My first two are conservative, but my third one, I was concerned about, and I hope she doesn't get mad at me for saying this, but I was like, I don't know. She was a little wishy-washy on some issues, and we've learned over time.
A lot more susceptible to like social media influences, and that's just her personality was different.
And because we've had so many kids, we've made mistakes, and we can learn from those mistakes and do it different with the other kids. And we send our little daughter to the University of Dallas. Good Catholic traditional education.
Classical.
It's a real education, what college used to be. But I know that had I sent her to some other state university or woke university, I very well could have lost her. And so even though we might do the good work of K through 12, where we help them go to school really matters. And I said, listen, you can go wherever you want. That's fine. But if you want me and Rachel to help, then we're going to have some say in where you're going to go. You can choose.
Yeah.
You want my help?
I put it in my estate plan, so if we had kicked the bucket, early, we were going to make sure that they weren't going to any schools that took government money, because that's the first kind of, lead in. And
Sure.
And we had a list of schools that were kind of our preferences, and
Right.
and my buddy Randy controlled those. My financial advisor controlled those purse strings, so he was gonna be that other bulwark to make sure they were going down the right path.
You're
and
always
actually,
one step ahead of us. You are always one step ahead. It's like I just need to just wake up in the morning and go, what's Bryce doing today?
oh, stop. No, you know what? Look, I appreciate the compliment, but it's
we're gonna get the bracelet.
No, because that'll lead to all kinds of other destruction in your life. You do. Yeah, no, I'm not the example. But I paid attention to other people. I mean, it was Dennis Prager who famously said that, you sending your kids to university is playing Russian roulette with their lives, and because that is so true. And I have friends that I watched go before me, where their kids, went to these universities, and in fact, one of my closest family members, or my closest friends, who they're more like family to me, they had 4 kids, and 2 of them went to good conservative Christian schools and came out good and conservative, and one went to like the University of Boulder, and 2 went to liberal schools, and both came out extremely left. So.
Yeah, Sean calls it commie camp. So he's like,
yeah.
Just assume that's what it is, and you decide, do you want to send them to commie camp?
They professionalized indoctrinating your child. It's not about education. Yeah. They have worked through, what do I say? How do I pressure? How do I push these kids to get them to make the transition? And they do it really well. And so if you love your child, why on earth would you send them into the devil's den and get warped? Don't do it. And at least not $1 of yours should go to that.
Well, I think 8 out of every 10 kids should not go to university, and they should go to trade school. They should build a business. They should go down an entirely different path. You'll make more money half the time anyway. It's usually just going to saddle you with debt, going to most of these colleges. So, forget it. Get out there and become an entrepreneur.
Agreed.
Speaking of entrepreneurs, and going back to our original conversation, Rachel's on Fox and Friends on the weekends. I have a show on Fox Business from 6 to 7 p.m. with Dagan McDowell. That's my shameless plug, Bryce.
I was going to ask you to plug everything. So,
but we went to a homestead conference. Right. And so if I think of homesteaders,
you went with your show.
With the show went there, and we did a package. But you used to think of the dirty, smelly hippie with the Birkenstocks on, and I'm organic, and like that was the vision that you had of like someone who's going to try to just, what is homesteading? Raise what you eat on your farm. And I went to this homestead conference and met wonderful people. who've been in the movement a long time, but they'll tell you that they've seen a transition, and especially after or during COVID, when people realized how vulnerable they are to the system.
Yeah.
Said, you know what? We want to learn how to take care of ourselves, and they're teaching them how. There's a chicken guy. There's a bee guy. There's the milk guy. The how do you slaughter animals guy. There's all these people there. It was amazing to go and see this movement that's happening. That people want to know where their food comes from. They want to raise it. They want to see what injections, if any, hopefully none, go into their animals. What kind of feed they feed their animals. Do they put chemicals in their garden, or do they compost? Really remarkable, but people are going back to some basics, which I think breed more sustainability and security through a food system, especially if you can do it yourself. Which, by the way, we want to do that at one point, but we haven't got
there
there
yet.
yet.
We're
I want to keep
Small
bees.
business owners.
That's
I want to
thing.
do the bee thing.
He just bought hives. He just
Bought
bought hives. We have a friend. We met a guy in our town. We live in Jersey, but we live in the rural part of Jersey. So we have farms around us, and we purchase, livestock and eggs and stuff from the farmers around us. But Sean ended up meeting a guy who owns a tree farm in our area, and he's a beekeeper. And so, these guys talk bees all the time. So Sean's excited. He's going to start this summer.
I'm getting my bees.
It sounds a little dangerous, but
no, listen. But you know what? You're right. I mean, how great to go. I can raise bees, and I mean, again, to have honey that came from the pollen in your yard, as opposed to maybe the honey that you bought in the store where they just put out this sugar water, and you have sugar water honey, which is crap honey. I want the good honey that has all these amazing attributes. And tastes so good. So I'm doing honey.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I love it. Well, I'm gonna pick your brain once you get rolling and see what your experience is like, because we're gonna do that on our land, because it's a fun little, we've got 10 acres in Idaho that we're moving to, and it's all sagebrush. So so it's perfect for doing this, and I think it'll be a fun little hobby.
Yeah, and there's so many people doing things like that, just small baby steps to learn how to do more things and be a little more self-reliant, which I think is really cool. And that's, our forefathers did that, right? It's amazing what they did, and we've lost all that. I've even said I should know how to can. Right? How do you can anything? And so I made applesauce, and the applesauce is easy to can, but I canned applesauce this year. But I'm like, I'm gonna take the next steps up.
Sauerkraut.
Yeah, but anyway, I didn't can the sauerkraut, but I made sauerkraut. Anyway, it's really cool to go, I want to know how to do different things instead of just being reliant on a supermarket. And when the supermarket doesn't work, I'm stuck. And for us, I'm like, I got 9 mouths that we're trying to help feed.
Well, I love it. Lawyer, lumberjack, beekeeper, canner. I mean, it's so good. I don't know how I'm going to keep up with you.
The most useless is congressman.
Thank you.
I'm kidding.
She's harsh. She's a little hard.
Well, hey, so please plug whatever you want, but where do we follow you? Repeat the shows that you're on, and when we can see those and all that good stuff.
Well, we have a podcast, Sean and I, called From the Kitchen Table, which you can download anytime. We do 3 episodes a week. And I'm on Fox and Friends Weekend, which is the #1 weekend morning show in the country. And so I'm on Saturdays and Sundays, 6 a.m. Eastern to 10 p.m. It's a 4-hour show. So you can catch me there. And I'm on Twitter, Campos-Duffy. And on Instagram, same thing, Campos-Duffy on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.
And again, I'm on Fox Business from 6 to 7 p.m. with Dagan McDowell. It's a show called The Bottom Line.
If you're watching Brett Baer, you're not watching Sean.
You're missing out.
Switch over to Fox Business.
Don't tell Brett we said that, though. Don't tell him.
I love it.
Yeah.
So, we have fun. And you know what? I think maybe as a final point, using our voices however we can, whatever platform we have, whether it's with our own families, whether it's in our church, whether it's doing podcasts, using our voices to whatever length we can to inform and challenge people to be ready for what's coming and to push back against it, to preserve what our fathers gave us to try to preserve that for the next generation. That's a noble cause, and it's at risk, and we should fight to preserve it because it's so great. Freedom is a wonderful thing. We shouldn't give it up. We shouldn't let it die with Gen X, Gen Z, whatever they are, but it shouldn't die with our generation.
Yeah.
Let's preserve it, and it's going to take effort, but it's worth it.
Yeah, I love that, because all of us talking, all of our voices, rising and espousing our values and our beliefs and the love of this country and all the things that we represent cannot be drowned out very easily. And, so many of us are self-censoring every day. But, listen. I'm watching people become all of a sudden vocal, and if you watched like Dave Chappelle's most recent special, he opened the door to make fun of everybody again, and there's a lot of people that are starting to say, you know what, we're not doing this anymore. We're going to start to just roast everybody, and we're going to start to speak the truth, and the more of us doing that, the more it's going to be difficult for them to make us slaves.
Yeah, courage. I think courage begets courage, and I think there were moments, I think, where we thought, you think you're alone, but when you stand up, and that's the other thing, there are people like you and like us who are okay being in the front, right, and like saying stuff and risking it all and speaking the truth, and not everybody's built to be right there saying it. But what you can't do is like a post. If someone's in fear of, being threatened with getting canceled, stand up for them, voice your comments in the comment section. You don't have to be, the person who stands up at the school board meeting, but you can be that person who's applauding the person who's standing up at the school board meeting.
You can be the one that's walking doors for the good candidates who are going to run for school board. And if you think that you can sit back on your couch and the cavalry is going to come over the hill and save this country, there is no cavalry. You on your couch, you are the cavalry. We are all the cavalry that has to save the country. No one else is coming. No one else is going to do it for us. It's all of our jobs. And a lot of people like to sit back and think someone else will speak up, stand up, push back, fight back. Ain't happening. It's all of our jobs to do that. And if we all speak with one voice, we're a pretty powerful force.
Yeah,
Amen.
They're definitely the minority.
No doubt.
Yeah, well, that's great, guys, and that's a perfect way to end this. Appreciate you guys spend this time with me. Love you both. Next time we're in your area. I was in New York this last weekend. Got to have dinner with Eric Metaxas and record in this little documentary that we're working on. Yeah, but we'll have to. My wife and I love visiting the city, and so maybe we can arrange to connect at some time again. That'd be wonderful.
That sounds like a fun dinner. You guys, Metaxas, us. That sounds like a good conversation.
We hate coming to the city. We like to be out in the country, but we do every day, and we can't wait to do that with you and have dinner.
That'd be great.
Yeah, wonderful. All right, well, hey, love you both. To God be the glory, and we are out. Hey, thank you for watching or listening to this show. If you are someone who listens to us on the podcast apps, please go to our Rumble channel. Even if you're not going to watch us there, we'd appreciate you hitting subscribe. We want to boost those numbers up and make sure that channel continues to grow. But again, thank you so much for listening to us.